Hello and Merry Christmas! Happy holidays to you all. And because of the 1 year gap between FM and our world, we're a day behind as well. So Boxing Day fixtures on FM means some Christmas Day action for all of you guys. I think all 28 of us in action. And we've got 5 highlighted games across League 1 and League 2. No highlighted games from the National League Prem today because they actually get their own day of fixtures on the 27th before League 1 and League 2 resume on the 28th. So it's hectic, busy, festive period, and I'm trying to give you a bit of football to watch on Christmas Day, as well as real life on Boxing Day, I'm sure. Actually, pretty big game, no matter when in the year it falls, because one of the rare games in League 1 where we've got drafters up against each other. This time, Matty and Levi, Ellister against FullofStrangeham. As you can see, Matty, fair enough, he's played more games than the other three, but pretty clear at the top at the moment. Levi not been in the best of form in recent weeks. Looking at some of the stats beforehand, I mean, the 2-1 loss at home to Bradford at the weekend really didn't help. Came out of absolutely nowhere. It's ensured that he's actually 4th of the 4 at the moment, obviously well clear of 5th, Tottenham C. So guaranteed playoff position at least. But it's the top 2 that those 4 are after, and Levi's the one trailing at the moment. In terms of form, he's actually the 8th most informed team in League 1. Likes of Wigan B, Huddersfield and Middlesbrough B and West Ham C all performing better over the last 5 games. He's lost 2 of those 5. Matty, on the other hand, won 4 and drawn 1, the second most informed team just behind Thomarse, who have won 5 out of 5 in recent weeks. And a big part of Matty's success has been Phil Foden. Scored 4 more than anyone else in the league, 16 goals already this year. Starting up front, whether it's with Cantona, Balotelli, whoever it is, just getting the job done. 11 assists from David Silva haven't harmed him either. That being said, I'm sure a draw wouldn't be a disaster for Levi, away at arguably the league favourites. But just as I say that, Phil Foden, 20th goal in all competitions, 17th in the league. Unplayable. Cantona, I think he was second top scorer in the Premier League. No, he actually won the Golden Boot, I think, in the end in the Premier League last year when Ellister came second. I don't know what it is with Levi's FullofStrangeham team. Just looked a bit thin on the ground, which he's usually one of the more active people in the transfer market, and he'll have that opportunity from next week onwards to resume that trend. But he's bringing on players like Jacob Ramsey, starting with Falcao up top. Edson Fernandez is playing quite regularly. Just doesn't seem to have the same strength and depth as maybe Foyverton or Ellister at the moment. Unfortunately, he certainly doesn't have a Phil Foden. Not played too badly. Looks offside. sure what's happened to Joe Hart today. Don't know if he's just been rested for Kepa. Most clean sheets of anyone so far this season, alongside Edison for Thomarse. But Ellister extending their lead at the top of the table. Levi's hopes of MATTch fading a little bit more. Of course, we still have half a season to go. Down to League 2. Obviously, we'll go through the other League 1 results after these highlighted games. Into League 2, and two teams that were struggling to avoid relegation last year that have shown signs of promise this year. Especially afZWimbledon have been teetering on the edge of the playoffs and are still only 3 points off that position. Connor lost at the weekend to myself. Despite that, actually had two players in the team of the week, Madison and Shearer. At times he's been unplayable this season, but he's dropped too many silly points along the way. While Connor was losing at St James's Park, Zig was comfortably seeing off Man United C at home, Maguire and Grealish cementing a 2-0 win. He won't have been happy to see David Raya go off there though, but lovely to see Neil Sullivan at Christmas. Grealish nearly adding to his festive tally there. Yeah, Zig's only 3 or 4 points off the top of the table, and form-wise he's the 9th best performing team. Connor, meanwhile, only 15th. That inconsistency, 1-2, lost 3 of the past 5 games. That's pretty indicative of his year so far. AFC reversing that trend, 1-3, lost 2. Wonder if they'll get a draw today. In terms of player stats, Shearer where he should be and where he wasn't last year, bizarrely. Now, as of that very moment, oh no, if that had stood, he's currently tied for leading goal scorer alongside Van Persie. Ominously, just behind them is Erling Haaland on 9, and I'm pretty sure he's missed at least half of the game so far this season for Warringham. But yeah, Connor with Kenny Dalglish at the helm and a 4-4-2. It's at least presented some goals, which he was struggling for last year. He's also struggled to keep goals out though. Now I've spoken about it a lot this season, but it's that weird midfield 2 for Connor, for Madison and MATTch, which just gets steamrolled a bit on occasions, then tends to bring on Fernandinho, and everything looks a lot more solid. Exhibit A. As soon as he shifts Madison out onto the left and has just a bit more muscle in the middle, just makes the world of difference, but Dalglish doesn't seem to have quite cottoned onto that yet. I think they've got a combined midfield 4 height of about 56 centimetres. But he's back in the game. Apparently they're enjoying themselves, according to that little commentary at the bottom. Again, you'd fancy Dembele in an arm wrestle against all four of their midfield combined. Oh, that's a good goal. Actually, a very Connorwich-esque goal. afZWimbledon, not necessarily known for their stylish interplay, but that's a cracking team goal. Just had a thought, actually, Kenny Dalglish was, of course, in charge at Wimbledon last season, before Zach unceremoniously kicked him out of the door and replaced him with Arne Slot. So far, not a happy return either. Cracking save by sub Neil Sullivan. It's been a great first half. I suspect there's more goals in this. Neither team really bothering to defend so far. "20 shots between them in that one half. And it's still game on, and we still haven't seen sturdy Fernandinho enter the fray either. Sometimes it's Douglas Luiz, but either way. There it is. The inevitable, not the inevitable change of formation though, that's a bit rarer. He's gone from no height to 15 foot of centre midfield there. Always good to get more defensive as you chase the game. No less resilient. No more resilient, I should say. It's 2 goals and an assist for Mane. Actually look less solid now that they've got those 2 defensive mids on. Bizarre game. So if Connorwich were enjoying themselves in the first half, afZWimbledon are loving this final 15-20 minutes. Wave after wave. I think Pickford's going to need to be rested on the 28th at this rate. Oh, late Alan Shearer overhead kick. Probably too little too late to set up a grandstand finish. But he does go clear as the leading scorer, barring any Van Persie goals later on. Good game and a good Christmas for Zig. And we'll find out now if Van Persie can keep up with Alangera. Potentially massive clash at the top of League Two. It's Dan City Cow that were making a lot of the early running in the league. Dropped down now to 7th. Then Sheff picked up that mantle and was hovering around the automatic places. Now he's dropped down to 8th. Both have games in hand on those at the very top though. And both you'd kind of expect to be in and around those playoff positions at least come April. Van Persie didn't really wait until the 93rd minute. Decided to get his 12th straight away. In terms of form, Dan City Cow just coming off a derby loss to Dan City Y at the weekend. Lost 2-1. Find Cheshampton, yeah, they also lost 3-1 away at Bustin Villa, which compounded a pretty heavy midweek defeat in the Carabao Cup quarter-finals as well. All square. In terms of form, yeah, actually, Dan City Cow really not able to replicate the first sort of few months. The last 5, won 2, lost 2, drawn 1. Sheff, who had won 5 out of 5, now sitting at a 3-0-2 form book. There's not a lot between them. It's going to be another goal fest. Four goals in the first 15 minutes. So at this rate, this should be a 24-goal thriller. And this highlights package is just going to get longer and longer. Push back lunch. What a start. We've only had 5 shots from the home team and 3 of them have gone in. Zabaleta running right down that right hand side. Alonso too busy scoring and celebrating to bother defending. He's going to get a goal as well, nearly. Emphatic first half. Wholesale changes, not surprising. It's a great start to the second half. Chesh's favourite player, the morally saint-like Robinho. Immediate impact. And just wholesale changes. He's already brought on his 4th sub as well. Wasn't happy with the start he made with that goal. And the 5th as well. He's furious with that cracking start to the second half. Maybe Cahill and Romeo couldn't get their shin pads on quick enough at half time. Oh, vintage gigs. I think in the game or on the database, Giggs is still pretty young, so this could be a very encouraging sign for Cal over the next few seasons. He's only going to get better. His first round pick from the original draft. Nice to see Jari Litmanen pulling the strings as well. Quite a clever pickup in the summer. Robinho injured. Something we all like to see, except for Chesh. Looks like we're heading for another 4-3. That's 16 goals in 3 games I think we've had so far. Off to Portman Road. The tractor Bolge up against Warringham. 2 teams in pretty good form. But that looming tower of Erling Haaland back in the squad. You'd think only John McGreal would be able to stop him, but for some reason he's not been picked. Benitez instead going for Stones and Southgate. Bizarre choice. Always fun guessing game of who's going to play centre mid for Craig's tractor Bolge. Pulling out Kayust and is it Tonali or McGinn today? Early reprieve for the home side. It's John McGinn today. It's nice to see. Don't know where Tonali is. I think maybe injured. Did he get himself sent off a couple of games ago actually? It's a cracking ball from Bergkamp. That's what he brought him in for. Things ticking over quite nicely for both teams recently. Just having a look at the form. So yeah, Craig. It's only mid-table form-wise. Actually, he's undefeated in 5, but 4 of those have been draws. So that's why I was maybe... God, what's a goal? Maybe thought he'd picked up more points than he actually had. Maybe he hadn't lost for a while. But only won 1, drawn 4. Warringham, meanwhile, won 4, lost 1. Erling Haaland, like I said, 9 goals, but he's not played a lot this season. Also picked up 5 Man of the Match awards, despite barely playing. The joint most of anyone, alongside Salah and Anthony, bizarrely. Warringham at the weekend, 3-1 winners at home to West Brom B. Craig inevitably drew. No, he didn't. Sorry, no, that was his 1 win in the last 5. That was home to Sheffield Wednesday B. But it did take a 60th minute penalty from Darren Bent to actually tip that one in his favour. Well, he's assisting now as well as scoring. Luckily for Craig, the linesman is assisting him. See, the hallmark of watching the tractor Bolge this year has been seeing which old Ipswich legends have made it onto the pitch. Not sure which ones are on the bench today. Had a bit of Finidi George, Martin Roycer, John McGreal, Matt Holland, Jim Magilton. I sort of called it at the start of this season. Warringham had such a truncated year last year because of the Europa Conference League. I think they were like 15 games behind everyone else at one point, but then finished just outside the playoffs in the end. Just sort of had a feeling that this year, if they put a run together, and actually they've done that without Haaland most of the time. It's been Milan Baros or Bowen or Ashton up front. So with Haaland back, already sitting in third, games in hand on first and second, they're going to be right in amongst it. I think pundit Gary Neville's going to have something to say about player Gary Neville after the game. And that should be that. I'm supposed to be seeing Craig around the Christmas period. Hopefully he's recovered. I'll cook him a nice roast on the 27th. Actually, I'm seeing Matt a couple of days afterwards as well. He can cook me a roast. A result that might put Warringham on top of the table. Obviously, it depends on other results later, which we'll go through. Another potentially cracking match here. I think even a week ago, I'd have been worried for Paul and his Bustin Villa side, going away to Jazz of the Rovers, who at one point were top of the table. But literally in the past few days, Aston Villa have won twice on the bounce. As Paul put it the other day, Ron Atkinson's cooking. Finally. And the game doesn't seem as much as a foregone conclusion as it would have done. I'll go through the proper form in a sec. But out of nowhere, when you've got Lampard and Petit in the middle, those wingers, I'd say, unless it's Eto'o and Mark Hughes up front, he looks a bit light up front. But with those two both starting in recent weeks, it's a very solid side. John Terry at the back. But obviously, look at that front four and bench options as well for Jazz. It's Janino playing in the 10 position today, but he's had Letitia there with Ljungberg, Henry, Hazard. It's been pretty unstoppable in recent weeks. only drew 0-0 at home to Arsened at the weekend, which was probably 2 points lost from Jazz's perspective. But overall, sitting 7th in the form table, won 3, drew 1, lost 1. Bustin 1-2, drawn 1, lost 2, but like I say, those 2 wins have actually been his most recent 2 games. At the moment, Jazz could be heading for his second 0-0 in 4 days. Talk that up. I talked about sort of squad rotation the other day, but really every team seems to have played pretty much their strongest lineup so far today. I suppose you'd expect that. Maybe there'll be a bit more rotation on the 27th or 28th across the 3 leagues we're covering at the moment. Liverpool roaming forward. Both Juve and Gilberto coming on late. Both have been transfer listed in the past few days. That transfer market opening soon. Interesting to see if Jazz needs new players though, because the ones he's got putting in a right promotion hunt. Right, time to go through the other scores. And we'll start with Foyverton. Comfortable win. Midfield had an absolute mare for West Ham C. Jack Collison and some bloke called Hart, who I don't know. Tevez, Kluivert and Sterling doing the damage, keeping that promotion chase on course. And this one I missed. Thomarse as well. Nice easy win. Say easy. Stats wise easy. We saw the other 2 in action earlier, so go down to League 2. Much needed win for Arsened. A game you'd expect to win, but kind of needed to stop the rot of draws and losses in recent weeks. If you can refine the form of earlier this season, definitely still in that playoff chase. Similar story for Danielsea, although they'll have to do a lot more to get themselves back in that picture. Two depth players in terms of Ruiz and Okazaki getting the 3 points at Barnsley. And Dauncey's Devils also keeping up the good form of the drafters. 2 more for Doku, who also scored at the weekend. That will prevent Warringham from going top, I think. Then again, I think Jazz the Rovers, his win would also do the same. Harry, much needed win for him as well, against non-draft opposition. Zaha brace. Still persisting with that back 5, even with no Gerrard or no Alonso. Very bizarre. Completely dropped from the squad, both of them. And Leeds UniTodd creeping up on the rails, beating very much in-form team Hart Chamberlain. The team of the moment barely showed any promise at the start of the year, and for the last 3 weeks, taken down some serious competitors. I'm pretty sure are now pretty embedded in that playoff picture. I won again. Also, with my games in hand, I'm looking in good shape. Louis still has lots of games in hand as well, so it's not a disaster for him by any means. It's nice that he won on his birthday. But I want Christmas. And the Red Whall also still very much in that promotion hunt at the top of the table. Steve Bruce doing his best to ruin things as usual, but for some reason Anthony keeps coming up with the goods. Drop down to the National League Prem, where we need to go through everyone's games. Charlton 24, who have been quite stubborn opposition for a lot of us, succumbing to Gourlayverpool quite dramatically, just the 30 shots. XG of 4.5, yielding a nice easy 3-0 win. Luton won as well. Belletti scoring and then getting himself sent off. All of the goal action in the first half, enough to secure the 3 points. And again, if you had to put your money on anyone dropping points of the 6 in this league, you'd say it was Liam's Manchestaff, and it's happened again. Could have been worse had it not been for Trincão's missed penalty. They are now putting their playoff position at risk. Another win for Marshyside, who are actually the most informed team, I should say, of the 6 in the National League Prem. Sensio Marmouche's late goals, keeping that up. It's never too convincing, but it has normally led to a win for Marshy in recent weeks. As you'd expect. 2 more wins to cover. First for Nottingham Giant at home to Newcastle D. Injury to Darmian, not ideal. He's been in good form recently. Otherwise, pretty routine. And routine for OTB Craig, seeing off Stoke's 24 side. Again, a couple of injuries creeping in as you'd expect at this time of year. It's 25 games in the league unbeaten now. Go back up to look at the league tables. As I said earlier, Levi's kind of fallen off the pace. Now 7 points off the automatics. Admittedly, still got a game in hand. And it's Dauncey still sitting top. As long as he keeps winning, he'll stay there until other people start picking up their games in hand. But you can see Jazz sitting pretty behind him. Warringham 2 more games in hand on Jazz, as does the Red Whall, and then Lawrence has another further 2 games in hand on all of them. And I have 2 games in hand on Lawrence, so it's pretty difficult to tell at the moment. And Louis has 2 games in hand on me, so the picture could quite quickly change. But wins for myself, Arsened, Danielsea Cow, Leeds UniTodd, afZWimbledon, all keeping pace with the playoff positions. You can see now Liam joint on points with Burnley B, Bournemouth B and Crystal Palace C only 1 point behind. So it's his playoff position that presents a bit of excitement in the league at the moment. Otherwise, it's just rearranging those 5 behind OTB Craig as he continues his march towards promotion. And that concludes the Christmas roundup. I will let you get back to your turkey, and back on the 27th for a dedicated NLP highlight special. Then back on the 28th for League 1 and League 2 action again. See you then. Merry Christmas.